in the modern world. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker.
Chris Farfoy.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Can I just express to you a happy new parliamentary year and also join other parliamentary colleagues in congratulating our new Speaker, the Honourable David Carter. We wish him all the best in his new role. We have seen his first outing as Speaker in our first question time today, and I think we'll give him a provisional pass. Used to be a C- back in fifth form, provisional pass. But we wish him all the best in that new challenge. I know he's a Canterbury man, born and bred, so he has what it takes to be able to succeed in that role. And can I also wish members of the House a happy New Year too. I apologise to those people watching at home because you've just had to put up with 3 speakers from the National Party. That's 30 minutes uninterrupted from the government of absolute spin and drivel. And we heard that from the last speaker, David Bennett from Hamilton. Hamilton, a lovely place, have got nothing against it other than what the Hamilton MP for Hamilton West has just said. He said that, that this debate is important because it is a philosophical debate about what our party stands for and what their party stands for. And he's absolutely 100% correct in that. And I can't agree more with what Rodney Hyde said about the government when he was in this House. This is a do-nothing government. A do-nothing government, and we've seen that for the last 4 years. And then Cam Calder before talked about you judge a country on how it treats its vulnerable. And I want to talk a little bit about that because, Mr. Calder, one vulnerable part of our society is the Pacific Island community. And if you want to talk about how that government's track record over the last 4 years has gone about looking after that vulnerable community, well, last week when the unemployment stats came out, 16% of Pacific people are unemployed. 16%, that's about roughly 1 in 8 of the Pacific people in this country who want work have no work. And let's look at the track record over the last 4 years. It's gone from 15.6 to 16%, so another rise in the last quarter. This time last year, the Pacific unemployment rate was 13.8%. So how is this government looking after that Pacific community when in the last 12 months it's looked after the vulnerable Pacific Island community by letting unemployment go up by 2.2%? How is that government going to be judged by the Pacific community when it looks it in the face in 2014 and says, we've looked after you, you're a vulnerable community, you haven't one iota, because 16% is more than twice the current average national unemployment. So when that Member of Parliament says that we've looked after vulnerable communities, you haven't, and especially the Pacific, the Pacific community. Sorry, Mr. Speaker. This government hasn't looked after the Pacific community. Mr. Speaker, we're talking about the Prime Minister's statement, and it was a brave effort that he made. I thought not his best, potentially his worst. But I want to know what's happened to the old John Key. What's happened to the old John Key? Back in 2008 and before that, he was positive about our country. He used to say, we're aspirational for a brighter future. We're turbocharging, we're kicking the tyres, but that John Key is gone. That John Key has gone. And we've seen someone who said he stood on principle, and then Mr. Bennett says that, parties or voters want to know what this party stands for. Well, I think it's clear to see that the people of New Zealand know that the National Party stands for whatever the last focus group said. The people of New Zealand know that that this National Party, that this government stands for whatever the last focus group said. So where is the old John Key, the shucks, happy-go-lucky Prime Minister that the people of New Zealand thought was, the be-all and end-all and would change the future of this country? A man who said he's going to be a leader for New Zealand to a brighter future, but who has only become a manager of a bleak present. And he said this pretty soon after he came into power, that New Zealand will be coming out of a recession reasonably aggressively by early 2010. So New Zealand would come out of the recession reasonably aggressively by early 2010. Well, one measure of that is our unemployment level, and it's still much, much higher. And before I think it was Stephen Joyce at question time started patting themselves on the back because last Thursday the unemployment rate went from 7.3 to 6.8. But let's do something that the National Party hate, and let's look at the facts. Let's look at the facts, because When those figures came out, it was very interesting to read, and a very helpful lady at Statistics, the manager, Diane Ramsey, said, "We're seeing fewer people working and looking for work and more people outside the labour force. More younger people are solely in study and more older people are entering retirement." So basically what she's saying in her statistical frame is it's bleak out there for most New Zealanders. It's bleak out there for most New Zealanders. And the sad thing about that is when she's saying that fewer people are looking for work, that they have lost hope that they can find work. They have lost hope when they can find work. And this government will be worried about that, because when people start losing hope that they can find work, that's going to start really impacting them, and I think that will really impact them over the next 12 months. But, Mr Speaker, as MP for Mana, I wanted to take a little bit of a closer look at those figures, take a closer to home look at those figures, because Wellington unemployment is at an 18-year high. So Wellington unemployment is at an 18-year high. Not since 1994 has it been worse. So it went from 7.1 in the September quarter to 7.9 in the December quarter. 1% higher than the national average. So basically the raw numbers are that there are 22,600 unemployed people in the Wellington region. And in the previous quarter, there were 21,000. So 1,600 more people in this region, in our capital, are now unemployed compared to the previous 3 months. Mr Speaker, again, those are people who are losing hope that they can get a job and losing hope that this government can do anything to help them to try and find a job. And Mr Speaker, those New Zealanders are the forgotten New Zealanders that National doesn't care about anymore. That National doesn't care about anymore. Kiwis across the country are working harder than ever. They're doing their fair share. They're either working or looking for work, but they feel let down by this government that promised them a brighter future. Where is this brighter future? Because this is a government who has forgotten about those people who have gone off the register, who are no longer looking for work. And it's only a Labor-led government that will stand up for those hard-working Kiwis that this government has forgotten. And as I said before, this is a do-nothing government. And in 2014, the people of New Zealand will elect a hands-on approach, different to what this government has done. This government has been a do-nothing, let the market decide. Well, that hasn't worked for the last 4 years, and you can feel the sense of unease that the people of New Zealand put faith in that government and that party that things would turn around. And all they get is excuses, and more excuses that things have not. So there needs to be a new era here in New Zealand, and that's what we're promising in terms of hands-on government. We need smart, hands-on government, and a government that is prepared to be a player and not a spectator. And I think one of the best ways that we've done that, and we actually promised this at the last election, is we're going to help our young people that Mr Bennett claims he was going to help. And because we on this side of the House have been saying that apprenticeships have been a priority for a lot longer than this party, who thought it was a good idea in early January because the focus group said so. So back in 2011, when we put out our policy, we basically said that we'd make an investment in our young people who wanted to upskill and get into work, and we'd help those people, those chippies, those plumbers, those electricians who needed help with an extra pair of hands, by having a policy of making sure we turn the dole into a subsidy for those employers who needed another apprentice. Now, when we go around, and I was speaking to a builder in my electric the other day, they love that idea. They love that idea. And they don't necessarily buy what the government is doing at the moment, coming up late to this party, saying that apprenticeships all of a sudden are important to it. Because this government has done very little around jobs for the last 4 years, and then all of a sudden, he calls it rubbish, but look at the figures. Look at the figures. The figures don't lie. Mr Woodhouse, the figures don't lie, and the people know what's going on there. So when you come late to the party around apprenticeships, people will notice that. People will notice that. So our policy of turning the dole into a subsidy for employers is a good thing for those young people that Mr Bennett says he cares about, but also a good thing for those employers who are struggling, who need an extra set of hands, who would love to take on somebody but can't quite make the commitment because it's too much of a financial barrier. So that's one of the hands-on things that we're going to do. And that's not standoffish, that's not let the market decide, that is a hands-on approach. And then you look at our Kiwi Build scheme. 100,000 homes over 10 years to address not only the employment problem, but the housing affordability problem that this government has done nothing about. And its only answer to the housing affordability problem is to make Nick Smith in charge of it. Is this some kind of joke?
Order.
It's not very funny if it is.
Sorry. Sorry, Mr. Speaker.
Your
His
time has expired.
And that's very sad.
Mr. Michael Woodhouse.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Can I begin by